Good afternoon. Welcome to the HFMA Colorado chapter webinar series. We want to take a moment first to recognize our annual business partners who not only provide the financial support to our chapter, but also share their knowledge and their expertise through speakers and presentations like this one. Their support allows us to operate our chapter and bring our members quality education and resources, and we hope that you will take a look at them first when your organization needs services. We also want to remind everyone about certification. If you're interested in getting certified, we want to remind you that certification is included in your membership. There are no additional costs for training materials or exams. Certification can be completed online on your own time and at your own pace. There's no need to find a testing site. Exams are not proctored. And if you need any additional assistance, please be sure to reach out to your HFMA chapter. We've got a couple resources here with contacts for you. Eric Wilberg is our Colorado chapter certification chair. He'd be happy to answer any questions. Also, the Career Services Department of HFMA National is also there and able to answer any questions for you. Today's webinar, Motivating Employees to Be Their Best. Our speaker today is Amy Canaday. Amy has performed a variety of, Amy is the Director of Business Development for Collection Center, Inc. She has successfully performed in a variety of roles during her 21 years with CCI, including debt collection, HR, education and employee development, client services, and sales. Her talents are in high demand as a knowledgeable and compelling speaker with accreditations through ACA International. Amy remains active in industry-related associations, such as HFMA and the Wyoming Hospital Association. She also serves as a member of the Wyoming Collection Agency Board. Amy, welcome.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate the introduction. While I was hoping to have my name in lights today, all I was able to come up with was the lighted A that you see behind me, so I'll settle for that. But I am excited to be here with all of you today. I see some familiar names and some new ones, which is great. I appreciate all of you joining our session today. I would like for today to be interactive, so please feel free to use the chat box to provide input or ask questions as we go along. I tend to lean more towards the chat box than I do the Q&A box. So if you guys could open that up on your side, and you can go ahead and test that out now by just typing in howdy. Do make sure that you've selected the little drop down that you want your comments to go to all panelists and attendees so that we can all see those. I'll be watching for those as we go along, or as I ask you guys for input so that we can make sure to address those. And I do hope that you stick with us till the end today, as I will provide you with some additional resources at that time. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to cover today. What we're going to talk about today in this session, as it described, was we're going to cover topics that will help you increase the ability to encourage your employees, or maybe even your own intrinsic motivation. The positive impact of intrinsic motivation in the workplace is becoming highly supported by scientific evidence. Recent data shows that employees who are intrinsically motivated are 32% more committed to their job. They have a 46% higher job satisfaction, and they also perform at 16% better than other employees. There was another study that showed intrinsic motives have 3 times the impact on employee engagement levels than extrinsic motives. There's also additional research that found that intrinsic rewards, like the feeling of joy or personal fulfillment, have a greater impact on employee retention than extrinsic rewards like money or recognition. Intrinsic motivation is essential for what's called organizational citizenship behaviors. And this is where employees are willing to go above and beyond in their formal job roles or duties and really help the team and the organization move forward. Intrinsic motivation also increases employee engagement satisfaction, and performance, like I mentioned. However, I felt like it would be a really good place for us to start to talk briefly about extrinsic motivation. So if we take a look at this next slide here, extrinsic motivation is where rewards are given from one person to another. Examples might be peer-to-peer recognition. I live in Rawlins, Wyoming. Our hospital that we have there, Memorial Hospital of Carbon County, I serve on their foundation board. So as a member of their foundation board, I also get their weekly newsletter. And something that I see they do in their weekly newsletter is they will put or post kudos to their staff. So there can be somebody from another department or even a patient or a vendor that can submit kudos or shout outs to the marketing team about a department or an individual person, and then they incorporate those into their weekly newsletter that goes out to employees. So that's one example of peer-to-peer recognition. Something that we do in our office is called a recognition program. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along in the session today, because we will talk some more on extrinsic motivation. But maybe another example might be, an employee of the month that's voted on by each other, or maybe the best call of the month. Again, that's something that we do in our organization, in not just our collection division, but even in our client services team. So, other people can listen to those and vote on those as well. Extrinsic motivation can work. I have used it hundreds, if not thousands of times in my 21-year career with Collection Center. It's really the carrot and the stick philosophy. Things like games and prizes and contests, and I really have hundreds of them. That's a different topic for a different day, but know that I do have resources for that if you guys are interested in contests to do some of those extrinsic motivation techniques. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to share some of those ideas with you. But I think it's important to realize that this type of motivation really can become a double-edged sword. While it can increase the performance up to a point that the employee receives their reward, but then what happens after that? Let me give you guys an example. We did something for many, many years that was wildly popular in our organization. It was called $50 a day. Now, as you guys know, I work for a debt collection agency, Collection Center. So our goal is to recover money on those past due receivables that providers turn to our office. So collectors, one of the things that we would do is I would come out on the floor, I'd have a stack of $50 bills, and I'd say, all right, it's $50 a day. Everybody would get excited about it. And I would say, today, what you need to do to earn this $50 bonus and walk out of here with this today is I need you to get $2,000 worth of urgency payments, which is what we call checks or credit cards over the phone, or we get somebody to walk into the office that day with cash, bank wire, any number of ways to do that. But the payment had to be dated for that day, and they had to have taken action that created that payment for that day. And so they would get super, super excited about it. Everybody was focused. They were pushing towards hitting that $2,000 bonus or that $2,000 goal. And then once they did that and I handed them their $50, they just kind of sat back. And I didn't see a whole lot of productivity from those individuals for the rest of the day. And so that's what I mean by that can become a little bit of a double-edged sword. So if you're going to use those extrinsic motivators, which you should be doing, sometimes you got to get a little bit more creative than everybody else that might be receiving that, and find ways to keep them pushing or keep them excited even past meeting that reward. By only focusing your efforts on extrinsic motivation, you really can find yourself in a position where you override intrinsic motivation. So what is intrinsic motivation and how is it different than extrinsic motivation? Let's take a look. Intrinsic motivation is motivation that is given to oneself. Examples of this might be personal development or knowledge, such as sitting in the session like all of you are today, or maybe it's other industry-related events that you attend. Having a sense of responsibility or accomplishment is what intrinsic motivation is. And while this essentially means that intrinsic motivation is something each individual is responsible for themselves, we as leaders also carry a responsibility to intrinsic motivation. It's really important that leaders create an environment that encourages and recognizes this type of motivation. So how do you guys do that? Well, let's take a look at the next slide. You can start by evaluating yourself. What do you do to support and motivate your team? And again, as I'm going through this slide, you guys, please feel free to utilize that chat box. Again, I want it to be interactive, and I'm keeping an eye on that for you. So ask yourself that. What do you do to support and motivate your team? Share some of your thoughts and ideas. But here's some questions to really ask yourself. Do you guys encourage stress relievers? You can type yes. Yes, I do. You can share specifics in the chat box as to what you do to encourage stress relievers. But some examples of that might be like employee health awareness. Something that we do in our organization is we have a wellness committee. And that wellness committee monthly will put together different things that our staff can do to help promote health awareness or a healthy lifestyle. Maybe it's a water challenge or a steps challenge, get so many steps in per day. They'll also share some recipes. They'll send out some recipes for some healthy foods that people can try at home. So those are some different ways that our wellness committee tries to really encourage health awareness within our organization. I see Pilar saying that, yes, they also have a monthly wellness call that they do within their organization. So that's great. Another thing that we do in our office pre-COVID to encourage stress relief is we have a massage therapist come into each of our offices once a month. And that massage therapist would provide a 15-minute chair massage to all of our employees. We kind of did it on a rotating basis. But that was something that, again, encouraged stress relief. And as a bonus to that, our massage therapist would sometimes end up getting employees enjoy that experience, and they would then schedule to get a monthly hour-long massage, which, again, I swear by that. That's definitely something that I do myself to relieve stress. Another thing is finger fiddles. That's something that we do in our office that helps relieve stress. What I mean by that, finger fiddles are things that will keep people's hands busy. And they say statistically that if you have things that keep your hands busy while you're learning something new, or you're in a meeting, for example, you're able to pay more attention and you're able to retain more of that information that's being passed on to you. I actually brought some examples of finger fiddles that we use in our office. I set these out while we're having meetings or training sessions, but things like push balls, and maybe you guys have seen these, or Aaron's thinking putty is a really big one in our office. It's just some silly putty. I love it. It's quiet, doesn't make noise when we're sitting in a meeting and somebody's using that. But those finger fiddles, I actually ordered these. I got a box of them through a website called trainerswarehouse.com, and they actually call it a finger fiddle box. And there's different ones that you can select, or just go buy those things and make them yourself. I definitely suggest, though, if you're going to do that, make sure that it's not like the clickers or even the fidget spinners, because those are noisy and they can create a distraction. But another thing for stress relievers, do you encourage your employees to take a 15-minute break or 2 15-minute breaks a day? And if so, can they get out and walk around to get some fresh air and some sunshine, which right now it's a little chilly for that, I understand, everywhere, but also break rooms. Do you have break rooms within your organization that are inviting and relaxing to your staff? That's something that in our organization we've really paid attention to. I see some feedback coming in on the chat box here too. Michael saying that his team, where he has 5 full-time employees, including himself, they've transitioned to working remotely since last March. Boy, isn't that a situation that several of us have had to deal with. And about once a quarter, he leads a discussion to ask what each person does to relieve stress, like walking their pets. That's a great one. I personally own bulldogs, so I don't take them for a walk because I know I'm going to end up having to carry them back, which isn't my favorite. Or hiking, binging TV shows. I'm a crime show junkie, so I do that from time to time. different things. So that's great, Michael, that you guys are doing that. I mean, it's letting them provide that information to one another. They learn from another, and you're also making sure that they are utilizing those types of stress relief resources. So great one. Deb also mentioned that she uses a calm app, 15 minutes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where they do yoga at lunchtime. That's awesome. I love that. We've done yoga as well. Joseph even said that one of his staff is at yoga lunch right now. I love that. I really want to try out goat yoga. I haven't yet, but someday I will. So yeah, definitely make sure that you're encouraging stress relievers in your organization. The next question to ask yourself is, do you show appreciation? The number one factor that impacts employee satisfaction is appreciation. Number two is overall company outlook. Like, do you invest in your employees, your customer satisfaction, longevity of your staff and of your organization, etc.? Those are some examples of company outlook. We make sure to make a really big deal about employee work anniversaries and acknowledge that and show our appreciation for that. How we go about doing that, besides just putting that in the newsletter or on our shout out boards on our intranet, our CEO, Dan Russell, sits down at the beginning of each month and he personally writes and sends each employee an anniversary card to their home address, not to work. He doesn't send it or go set it out on their desk. He sends that to their home address because he really wants them to feel that sense of accomplishment and that appreciation that he carries for them. And he wants their families to know it too, that we appreciate that they're meeting those landmarks and those anniversaries. So things like that, again, feel free to type in the chat box, what do you guys do in your organization to show appreciation, or what has your organization done for you to show that they appreciate your work or your longevity there? Feel free to share those. I'll take a look. Joseph, again, that looks like a thing. Making the recognition personable is huge too, and I absolutely agree. Some people do like public acknowledgement. Others like to be recognized more privately. I definitely agree with that. We're going to touch on that today too. So excellent point, Joseph. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Another one is PTO. Do you guys encourage your staff? I mean, most organizations provide some type of time off, whether it's a bulk PTO bank, or maybe you have separate vacation time and sick time, whatever it is. I'm just going to refer to it as PTO or paid time off. But do you encourage your staff to actually take that time off? We actually provide an opportunity to our staff to be able to accrue some additional time off by meeting goals and things like that. Again, that's an example of that extrinsic motivation. But we want them to use that, because using that time off, I know for myself, prevents burnout. I take 2 vacations every year. I make sure that I do that, and during those vacations, I truly disconnect so that I have an opportunity to recharge. If you do have cash out or a PTO banks, do you have cash outs? If they don't utilize all of their PTO, do they have an opportunity to cash that out at the end of the year or their anniversary year and receive payment for that? Those are some good incentives to have in place too. However, there are some people that would rather be able to just cash out all of their bank than actually take the time off. And what my experience has been over the years is individuals that do that, they do get burnout. They get frustrated, and that ends up impacting their productivity. So one of the things that we did was, because we do offer PTO cash outs, but we also want them to take the time off occasionally, we ended up implementing where they could only cash out a partial amount of their payout if they were going to cash out instead of using it. Because again, we really want to prevent that burnout. So there's some examples there too. Do you review employee compensation periodically? Make sure that you are in line with other employers in your area. I actually think that there's a resource on Indeed that helps you kind of take a look at that, what the market is in your area for jobs that might be similar to those that you're taking a look at. But I think it's important to do that, review your employee compensation periodically. And when you do that, take into consideration things like commission and bonuses, gift cards, benefit packages. I mean, those are huge. I know how I'm a business owner myself, and so I know how expensive health insurance is to provide for your employees. And so, I think it's important that we highlight that to our staff. We actually used a PEO, or a professional employer organization, in the past, that would provide our employees with a total compensation report at the end of every year. And so it would show them what their annual income was, with all of those things factored in. And then the cool thing was they would break that out to hourly too, because people might be thinking, oh, I only make $15 an hour at this job. But when you factor in all those other benefits that you offer them, you might find that they're making like $18 an hour that they're not going to be able to make elsewhere. So, those are types of things to look at as well. And Deb, it looks like is saying that you guys have an option of using sick time for mental health days. I love that. I absolutely think that's a great idea. If someone's stressed, they can request to take a mental health day. They don't have to say why, and then they can just have it taken from their sick time. That's a great idea, especially with what we've been dealing with for the last year. The mental health support and the opportunity to be able to just take a day to regroup and invest in themselves is so valuable to your employees. So that's a great idea, Deb. Thank you so much for sharing that. And last but not least, do you know what motivates them? Do you know what motivates your staff? Have you asked them? Because it can be different. It can be different based on generation, gender, need, maybe even their length of employment. I mean, I've seen it all. We've got a mixed group of people in our organization, and what motivates one isn't necessarily going to motivate everybody. So I think it's really important that you ask them. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the next slide. We've got our little monkeys here on our next slide, and keep in mind that it's important that you know your employees if you're going to expect them to give their best and remain loyal to you and to your organization. Just like you probably have during your career, they need to feel valued and appreciated. And if you can make the investment in knowing your employees, you'll find that you're fostering a really healthy work environment. And those are the types of environments that employees stay at and they like to work in. And not only that, you'll be better able to manage them when you know what their strengths and their challenges are. And this is going to result in better performance. As business professionals, you guys, I get it. I know that we're busy, and sometimes you wonder, where the heck has the 8 hours in the workday gone? But no matter how busy you are, make sure you connect with your team in some way on a daily basis. So, like our slide says, if you can only do one thing today, connect with your team. Make sure you do that. How do you get to know your employees? Let's take a look at some examples that we have on the screen now. From this slide, you'll see some examples that will help you learn more about your employees. Do you actively engage with them and encourage them to interact with one another? You guys can, again, share your own ideas or experiences in the chat box. What do you do to engage them and encourage them to engage and interact with one another? Something that we do in our offices, and we have an office in Loveland, Colorado. We also have an office in Rawlins, Wyoming. And in both of those offices, we would do something called Fun Friday or Wacky Wednesday. And this is where we would just gather all of our staff together for a 15 to 20 minute activity once a week. And it would just be something fun, like that would give us an opportunity to get to know them. Again, I brought some examples to show you today of some that we use. We get these things called thumb balls. I don't know if any of you have seen these before, but again, these are something that I ordered from trainerswarehouse.com, and they have different ones that you could do. So like these examples that I have here are more of just kind of like personal things. And so what they do is they stand in a circle, everybody throws the ball to one another, and you say, okay, wherever you catch it, whatever's under your left thumb is the question. So for example, mine would be my best coach or teacher, and I would have to answer that. My best coach or teacher was definitely my mentor and second generation owner of our company, Linda Russell. If any of you on the phone know her. And so then you toss it on and you just continue to do that. So there's also some though that are business related or leadership related. So you guys check those out on Trainer. I don't get any kickback from trainerswarehouse.com, but I do love some of those things that they have available to them. Another thing that we utilize sometimes for the Fun Friday or the Wacky Wednesday are these chat packs. Maybe you guys have seen those before. They're just kind of little conversation starters. We have another one here too that we use called Table Topics. So those are kind of some fun ways to encourage your staff to get to know one another. Now, in the days of social distancing, we still accomplish this by doing these activities via Teams or Zoom. And one of the cool things about us being forced into having to utilize the technology available to do those is that now it's not just office specific. We're able to get people from both of our offices in these remote locations on these Zoom calls or these team calls to do these types of activities. So, just because we're not all in the same room doesn't mean you can't still do those things. One of the things we can't do in person anymore though is Nerf guns. We actually have a Nerf gun wall in our Rollins office, and we would from time to time during our Wacky Wednesday or Fun Friday have Nerf gun wars. It's a lot of fun. We end up with a lot of bullets all over the place. But another thing is, encourage them to bring you ideas on how they can improve things within your organization. Something that we do in our office is owl ideas. And this is where, I don't know where the name owl ideas came from. Okay, I've been here 21 years and that's what they've always been called. But these are ideas that can help save the company time or money. Your people are the ones on the front lines doing the job every day. And sometimes they might have an idea on how to improve the process. It doesn't necessarily have to be, well, we're going to continue to do it this way because it's how we've always done it. There might be some technology available that there wasn't in the past, or different ideas. So this gives people an idea to submit these ideas, or an opportunity to submit these ideas. And then we have an OWL committee that gets together and reviews those, and they determine whether or not we're going to be able to implement that idea. If we can implement that idea, the employee ends up receiving some recognition for that, some public praise, and they also receive a monetary bonus. Now, again, I get it, that's an extrinsic motivation, but I feel like this one also provides an opportunity for intrinsic motivation, because people get excited about the fact that an idea that they came up with was able to be implemented and is being used, and it gives them that sense of investment and personal responsibility within your organization. So look for opportunities like that to encourage your staff to bring you ideas. I see we have a couple things in the chat box here, so I want to make sure to touch on those. I definitely appreciate you guys doing that. Michael's saying that they do daily 15 to 30 minute team calls to check in with everyone and prioritize projects throughout the day. You share your organizational updates as available, which is awesome. I'm going to talk about that too, because employees love to be in the know. They don't like to feel like they're a mushroom, but you also use that time to answer any questions or concerns from the team. And I think that's also important. On Mondays, you ask about the weekend activities. That's great too. On Fridays, you ask about the plans for the weekends. And every 2 weeks, having a team lunch that prohibits any work-related discussions. I love that too. So it's just about chatting and catching up with one another. Those types of activities are great. We spend a lot of time with our coworkers, and I think those types of things, sometimes we spend more time with our coworkers than we do our family. But I think that those types of activities really provide an opportunity for you to get to know them and for them to get to know one another too. And that's important. Joseph also shared that you get better buy-in from staff when you implemented their suggestion. And I agree. Change is tough for people. And something that I learned as a manager over the years is if I was going to have to make a significant change within a department or a division, one of the best ways to go about doing that was to get them to feel like it was their idea, right? Because you do get their buy-in, and then you don't get as much resistance to implementing that change. So thank you both for that input. I really appreciate that. Another thing is public praise for a job well done. And I think somebody mentioned it earlier. Some people like the public praise. Some of them like to be praised privately. And so it's important that you do get to know which it is that they prefer. But people like that. They like to get that recognition for a job well done. And there's lots of different ways to do that. It could be out on the floor. It could be in a meeting. It could be put in a newsletter. It could be done on an intranet of sorts if you have something like that in your organization. So, look for those opportunities to be able to do public praise, or just praise if it's one of those people that prefers not to have public praise. But make sure you tell people that you recognize them, they're doing a good job. That feeds their intrinsic motivation. They're going to want to do more of that for you. So make sure you're doing that. And then another thing is to spend time in your break room from time to time. And I get it, you guys, we're busy. I don't always take breaks, the 15-minute breaks that all the staff does throughout the day. But I do try to make sure that I do that once or twice a week. And I go and I do that wherever it is that they have their breaks. You'll be surprised really how often you end up seeing a leader in the group that you didn't really realize was a leader. And you also get an opportunity to know a little bit more about your staff on a personal basis. So look for those opportunities. Again, thank you guys for chiming in on that. I want to talk next about personal values. One of the most significant ways that a manager can tap into intrinsic motivation is by helping employees identify their most pressing personal values. From there, you can teach your employees how to make connections to those values on the job. By understanding each employee's values, managers can strategically guide employees to make decisions and take action in a way that supports both community, influence, and openness. So put yourself in there, in those shoes, you guys. Ask yourselves, who are you? Personal values are what motivates, what are motivators that we really hold near and dear to us. So ask yourself that question. What are your personal values and how do those motivate you? How do you hold those near and dear? When values are honored, we really feel a sense of self-satisfaction, right? So deep down, it's personal values which determine the W's, the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why of how we live our lives. People who are conscious of their values, they tend to live a more fulfilled and happier life. And if there's conflict between personal values and work, then that intrinsic motivation can really suffer. It probably will suffer. If there's alignment between personal values and work, then intrinsic motivation, you're going to find is going to increase. So do keep in mind, however, that sometimes people will trade their values for their needs. So I think it's really important that you not only know what their values, their personal values are, but also know what your employees' needs are. Find out, like I said, find out what their values are. You can do that by just listening, being a fly on the wall, or doing some interaction with them in the break room, or through these different activities that I've suggested to you. And if you guys need some help with that, reach out to me offline afterwards or at any time. I actually have a really quick and easy activity that I can send you that you can use for yourself to determine what your own personal values are. But it's really easy to administer to your staff and have them turn that back into you too, so that you can find out what their personal values are. So let's talk about stress. Okay, if any of you are early 90s like I am, you might have thought I was going somewhere else with that if you listened to Salt and Peppa, but I wasn't. Let's talk about stress. By show of hands, or just typing in the chat box there with a yes. I don't see the raise hand option, but how many of you feel like this from time to time, this picture that we have here? I know I do, right? Like you just have so many things coming at you. There's so many things to do all at once. Right as we were logging in today, I was telling Jessica about an experience. Yes, I see a lot of yeses going on. Yes, we all feel this, right? I was telling Jessica that I took my computer home with me last night. I had a Zoom meeting for a foundation board. I'm in the middle of that, and my computer just crashed. It just shut down. And I had yet to do my final run through for this session today. And so these were outside pressures. I was stressing out. I was so excited about doing this. And now I have these outside pressures that I really didn't have any control over. And so I get it. We all feel like this from time to time. Here's something you guys need to realize. If you feel like this from time to time, so does your staff. Okay, they're human too. Dealing with outside pressures can also have an impact on that intrinsic motivation. Individuals really need to be able to recognize when stress exists. They need to understand how to control it and how to reduce the negative side effects and where to find help when it all just becomes too overwhelming. And outside pressures might be examples of, some examples of that might be health, family, economy, other commitments, money, relationships, etc. If you guys can think of some examples, which you probably can, of outside pressures that have impacted your own motivation on the job from time to time, feel free to share those in the chat box, because I know we all have. A couple years ago, example of that was I had just returned from vacation. My husband had picked up a weird virus while on vacation, ended up having to be flown to a different hospital, was hospitalized for a week. In the midst of that, my daughter's having a nervous breakdown, and my son, who is away at college, ends up getting in a car accident and totaling his car, all in the same week. Like, I definitely had some outside pressures. And in the midst of all of this, I'm still trying to do my job day to day that I love and that I'm passionate about and I'm excited. But I got to tell you guys, like, that intrinsic motivation suffered that week. So you guys can probably all think of examples like that too. But you've got to remember, you guys have probably dealt with that, and your staff does too. So how do you get a handle on this for yourself? And how do you teach your staff to do the same? Well, you do that by using proactive responsibility. How do you practice proactive responsibility? First and foremost, plan your day, okay? I get it. Sometimes you plan your day and then everything goes to crap and nothing works out the way that you had planned for it to. But having that outline or that plan of your day can help prevent the frequency in which everything just goes to crap. So create a to-do list. You can do that at the end of your shift the day before, or maybe even the night before if you keep something like that on your nightstand. That also helps kind of mentally get all of that out of your mind and onto paper so you don't have to worry about it when you go to sleep. When I don't do that, I end up having really strange bizarre work dreams. So that's something that I'm trying to implement myself. But make sure as you're creating those to-do lists that you don't overschedule yourself, because there's going to be other things that come up that you didn't schedule, you didn't plan on. And if you really overschedule yourself, you're going to feel overwhelmed and you're not going to be able to get to the to-do list or effectively manage those things that you didn't intend on coming up, those surprise things that happen every day, right? Also, schedule time for yourself, even if it is just 15 minutes a day. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but there's different things that you can do there in that 15 minutes a day. You can listen to music. You can maybe go on and watch YouTube videos or listen to podcasts. I am a huge true crime fan. And so one of the things that I do to just like invest and schedule for myself 15 minutes a day, I love Bailey Sarin. I don't know if any of you on the line know who she is, but she does her makeup while she's telling true crime stories. And they're short, they're 15, 20 minutes, that type of thing. Or I listen to podcasts like Crime Junkies or Dateline episodes. It's kind of what I do. It could be doing something that you enjoy, maybe spending time with the grandkids again, or the kids. I say grandkids because I have a new grand baby. She was 3 months old this week, but I don't get an opportunity to necessarily go and spend time with her every week, but I'll FaceTime with my daughter so that I get a chance to see the grandkids and interact with them. That's something that I enjoy, scheduling time for myself. Next one, make sure that you guys get enough sleep. It's easier said than done. I'm still really practicing that one, but sleep is important to really invest in that proactive responsibility that you need to practice. Also, eat a healthy diet, whatever that means to you. Keep a journal of things that are going on, a diary of sorts or a journal, whether it be personal or professional. Getting those things down on paper can sometimes really help alleviate some of those outside pressures that you run up against too. Spend time with friends. And I get it, you guys, that can be more difficult in the day of social distancing and dealing with COVID like we are. But look at creative ways to do it. A group of friends that I have from high school, we were really used to getting together once a quarter for game night. And we weren't able to do that anymore. And so what we found was an alternative online that was kind of similar to like Cards Against Humanity. And so we would just set up a date and a time. We were doing that. We would all log in. We'd set up a Zoom meeting similar to what we're doing today. And we compete against household to see who was going to win. Hashtag team candidate. We always were the ones to come out on the top in that. But look for those opportunities that you can still spend time with friends and do things that you enjoy, despite being in the midst of a pandemic, which has limited some of those things that we were used to. And spend time helping others in need by either volunteering or getting involved in your community, or maybe even an organization within your company. Filling your bucket can help really maintain that intrinsic motivation that you feel. And I know you guys might be thinking, yeah, easier said than done, Amy. As a mid-level manager, I'm really limited on the impact that I can have on motivation in my organization. And I'm here to tell you guys that's just simply not true. So let's talk about managing motivation. Here's the cool thing, you guys. Regardless of what the culture has been like, you can help your team change that culture. So if we take a look at the next slide, you're going to see some examples here. You can do that by managing motivation in a negative culture. You can create your own mini culture by building community and sharing power. You can do that through delegation. Okay, delegation is a good thing to do. Make sure that you're delegating the right things to the right people. But not only does it get things off your plate, but it empowers those employees to learn and grow as well. And also another thing by creating that mini culture or building community is to share information. Somebody mentioned that earlier. They do that once a week by kind of talking about the company's goals and successes and so forth. Make sure when you're doing that, though, that you share appropriate information, okay? Don't be sharing information that's going to contribute to negativity or get people riled up and unnecessarily upset. You can also be a filter between upper management and your staff, especially if what you found is in your organization, micromanaging has become the norm. As a mid-level manager, you have to be willing to be micromanaged without being a micromanager. So find that balance in between there. Pace your team, avoid doing too much too fast because you don't want mistakes to happen. You don't want them to feel overwhelmed or get burnout. Avoid groupthink and unhealthy agreement. That's going to help you avoid workplace drama. I'm going to touch on that here in a bit again too. But keep stability too, where you can. Create and maintain those work team traditions. As I continue on, please, you guys, type in the chat box and tell me some work team traditions that you have in your offices. We talked about some earlier in some examples, but some other examples might be monthly birthday celebrations. Maybe it's TGIF activities or some team huddles like were mentioned earlier. Again, if you guys have some examples of those work team traditions, let's talk about them. Even if there's something that you've had to put on the back burner because of the current dynamic, get those out there for us, because maybe as a team, or as a group, we might have an opportunity to provide feedback on how you can still do those despite not everybody being in the same location anymore. Use potlucks. Yes, we would do monthly potlucks and for birthdays, which everybody loved. I actually follow a group on Facebook now called Why I Don't Eat at Potlucks, and some of the things you see on there, I feel like potlucks have boosted my immune system though. But yeah, potlucks, but those are challenging to do in today's day and age. So maybe an alternative to that is everybody bring your own lunch in or order lunch like Karen's suggesting, and everybody just get together and eat together in a common place with social distancing, being adhered to. Deb's saying we acknowledge birthdays and anniversaries at our organization weekly at our team meetings. Again, good. They love that acknowledgement. People love that. Decorating desks for birthdays and sending birthday cards. Yes, that's something that we do too. Having staff sign an electronic card for staff. They're away from the office. That's awesome. Something that we actually even do for our clients. We communicate through constant contact. And we make note of individuals within our clients' organizations and their birthdays. And we'll have constant contact, send out those little happy birthday announcements. You can do that with your staff internally as well. So Those are great ideas. Thank you guys. Birthday lunch with their immediate supervisor or manager, or even, the CEO or the CFO of the company. I mean, those kinds of things are important to people. Also use technology to the team's advantage. 2020 really shoved us into this, whether we were ready for it or not, whether we liked it or not. I hate to do video meetings. I prefer to be face to face. And so while video meetings weren't necessarily my favorite, I have found it useful in other ways that I hadn't considered, both in the organization and personally as well. I have a group of girlfriends that we would do like a monthly girls' night out. We call it GNO. Well, we've had to change it to GNI. It's Girls' Night In. And so what we did was we actually all signed up for the same wine club, and we all get our shipments about the same time. And so the same week anyway. And so when we get our shipments, then we schedule a happy hour, GNI, Girls' Night In, for one night that week. And we all get to taste our new wines and get a couple of hours to just kind of reconnect and get together with one another. And you can do that within your organizations too. It doesn't have to include wine, but bonus points if it does, I guess. But maybe it could be a book club that you guys get started in your organization, and you have a time set aside where people can log in and do a Zoom meeting to talk about things like that. So use your technology to your advantage. Also, pay a close attention to your own vocabulary. Don't use negative self-talk or negative talk about the organization, because you guys, it is contagious. My mentor, Linda Russell, I mentioned it was funny that I happened to get that because I had her built in this presentation. But one of the things that Linda taught me very early on is this saying, and I still use it to this day: attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching? So always remember that, okay? If you're having a bad day, make sure that that's not contagious and that your employees then end up having a bad day, and vice versa. Don't let their bad day be contagious and affect you. We get to choose how we're going to feel about whatever it is that's going on for the day. So I see some other suggestions coming in here with bingo, Jeopardy, and other games. I agree. And there's creative ways in which you can even do those online now, utilizing technology. Jessica's saying that they've done a book club where they read a business or a personal development book each month. I love that. That's a great idea. I've got one that I'm actually working on right now, and my supervisor, and I think that's a good idea. I'm probably going to implement it so that we're both accountable for actually reading that book that we need to. So great ideas. Thank you guys. And then the last one on here is, don't be afraid to take out the trash, you guys. If you have individuals in your team, they're just not willing to come to the party after you really tried all the right things to correct bad behavior or whatever it might be, just don't keep them around. Those individuals they're like a cancer in your organization, and they will, I promise, they will have a negative impact on morale and productivity and motivation in your organization. Let's take a look. Let's go over real quick some examples. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, so I want to go over some examples of intrinsic motivation techniques. So first and foremost, the ability to choose. Employees have different skills. They have different values, like we talked about, and individualized approaches to really completing tasks. So giving employees the opportunity to choose assignments that are best matched with their personal preferences and their strengths is really an internal motivator. Employees who feel that their skills are being used in the most effective way and the ability to select projects of personal interest is going to increase the chances that the final project will be successful. So give them the ability to choose. Opportunities for advancement. Employees who feel that they have a bright future or an opportunity for advancement ahead of them, they're more intrinsically motivated than employees who feel like they're just stuck. They're stuck in a job that's never going to change, or it's never going to inspire them. So employees who see a clear career path for advancement, they have a vested interest in the company, and they're motivated to contribute to its success, and therefore to their own success as well. Mentoring and education, that's another big one for intrinsic motivation. Employees who are mentored and given the opportunity to expand their knowledge through participation in professional development seminars and training sessions, they feel an increased sense of worth and this is an internal motivator that makes employees feel like they're valued by the company, which makes them value the quality of their work. Personally, this has been a really big one for me, a value of mine. I appreciate the opportunities to have mentoring and continuing education within my organization and my industry. And so I also feel really motivated to share those opportunities along the way with others. You know, my bosses have always allowed me to become involved at the national level, and that's really led to a sense of pride and accomplishment, not only for myself, but for my organization and my industry. So look for those opportunities to provide your staff as well. Regular feedback, we touched on that before too. Employees like to know where they stand with you regarding their performance. And so make sure that you're looking for opportunities to do that. Participation in decision making. Employees who are engaged at corporate decision making process, they're intrinsically motivated because they really have a sense of fellowship as well as a stake in the success of the company. So employees view themselves as being a valued member of the collective team, and that their intellect and input is noticed and appreciated. So seek their input to things. Enjoyment and satisfaction in doing an activity or a task. When you only focus on the outcome of what you're doing and you attach your worth to just the end result, you're going to likely be resistant to applying your best efforts and trying new things. And when I talk about you, I'm also talking about your employees. When you equate your worth with your performance instead of your effort, you prevent yourself from really enjoying the process that you're working through. When your satisfaction is attached to your effort, the process becomes enjoyable, regardless of what the outcome might be. In fact, defining your worth through your effort rather than your outcome will allow you to stop being so concerned with the outcome, and things will generally turn out fine. The outcome will. So while you still have goals that you want to accomplish, you're able to focus and present on the present moment and do your best during the task. Being recognized as a valuable employee resource. Recognition is a fundamental human need. We all need it, we all like it. And when an employee is recognized for their good work, it confirms that their work for the company is valued. And this raises the job satisfaction and productivity, and it's going to motivate people to continue to do their best for you. People like to know that they're valued within a company. And this might just be mention of their name in a newsletter or a call out in a meeting like we've talked about before. Knowing your worth is an important part of staying motivated and keep doing the job that you're doing. And the same holds true for your staff as well. Again, it's chat box time. I'm going to encourage you guys to write in there, what are some other intrinsic motivation techniques that you guys can think of. As those are coming in, I'm going to go ahead. I see we've got one come in that I'm going to look at here. But I'm going to go ahead and go on to the question and answer tab. We've got about 6 minutes, I believe, left today. And so I want to give all of you an opportunity to ask any questions or share any input that you might have. Feel free to type those in the chat box. And while we're waiting for those to come in, please make note that I have included contact information for both myself and our Senior Vice President of Client Services here at Collection Center. Her name is Rana Denny. For any of you that are current clients of ours, you may have had interaction with her. But if you're not comfortable asking questions or you don't have time here today, please feel free to reach out to either of us and ask those questions offline. So one of them that I see came in here. Let me get my mouse working over on that right box. Karen said, we offer job shadowing. Yes, that's great between departments or jobs. During performance reviews, we ask each employee what they do and they see as their next step and chart the path. So they have a career goal or a career path to work towards. That's awesome. We also challenge each employee to complete continuing education opportunities each year. Yes, giving them awards so that they can even hang on their wall to do that. I still have mine from 15 years ago hanging on my wall in my home office. But management sends out webinar workshops throughout the year to encourage staff to. Those are all great ideas. That job shadowing between departments and jobs, I love that one because it also provides an opportunity for cross-training, because you never know. You do not want somebody in your organization that is the be-all and end-all for a specific duty, because if something happens to them and nobody else knows how to do that job, you're in trouble. So I love that one. Thank you, Karen, for sharing that. I want to make sure that we get you guys out of here on time today. So let's go ahead and move on to our conclusion. But again, don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have a question that didn't get answered or you think of one later. But in conclusion, keep in mind that micromanaging kills intrinsic motivation. The more talented the employee is, the more frustrating it is for them to not have freedom to really prove that talent to you. Get to know them, okay? This is going to allow you to assign the right duties to the right people, and you'll find that they're going to take pride in the work that they do for you. Make sure that you agree on goals, okay? This can't be done if you don't communicate the direction of your organization. We mentioned that, somebody else mentioned that in the chat as well. It's important to make sure you communicate that. Give managers plenty of scope when they set their goals. This will trigger that kind of intrinsic motivation that ownership brings to the table. We've found that with our mid-level managers in our organization. And have an inspirational goal for the organization and make sure you communicate that to everyone, okay? Whether it's the janitor or the CEO of your company, make sure everybody knows what that inspirational goal is. If they know the direction and the purpose of the organization, they will find their work meaningful and more enjoyable. Intrinsic motivation can be applied to all aspects of your life, and it's been shown to be an effective way to improve performance. So by changing the focus to the internal reward of a task, such as satisfaction and enjoyment, you can better motivate yourself and others. I also just real quickly wanted to share a couple of resources with you guys today. So on this last slide, and I'm gonna try to type these in the chat box as well, you'll see some websites. Excuse me for looking away, I'm looking at my other screen. But here's some links via the web. There is this web page that's 7 secrets to intrinsically motivating your employees. So there's one you can take a look at. I also found this TED Talk that I really liked. This TED Talk, which I'm going to paste here for you guys when I get my mouse to cooperate. This one was by Dan Pink, and it's called The Puzzle of Motivation. And he actually talks about intrinsic motivation in this TED Talk. So check that out. And then there's also a book called Intrinsic Motivation at Work. The author of that is Kenneth Thomas. So if you guys want to jot that one down, again, it's Intrinsic Motivation at Work. Author is Kenneth Thomas. You know, check that one out. Maybe that's something you could then incorporate into your book club that you might do as well. How leaders can reduce stress for employees instead of adding to it. I didn't put this one on your slide, but I am going to, this was actually just an article from that I found on the National HFMA website just yesterday, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to paste this one in here. This is a brand new article that just was published this week. It was published the 12th, actually, on how leaders can reduce stress instead of adding to it. And they're similar to this topic. I actually just did a 30-minute webinar titled Managerial Mistakes That Contribute to Workplace Drama. It's a 30-minute seminar, really easy to listen to. I'll include a link to that as well. But you can find it on our website, mycollectioncenter.com, under the news section. But there's a link for that. So feel free to check that out at your convenience, or any of the other ones that we have on there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jessica. I'd like to personally thank all of you for joining us today. Collection Center and Colorado HFMA appreciates you guys spending the time with us for the last hour. Again, feel free to reach out to me offline if you have any additional input or questions, or if you're interested in having me present within your organization. I'm definitely happy to do so. So with that, you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Stay well, stay safe, know that we're here for you, and I'll give it back to you, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. We really appreciate it. That was amazing information, super helpful.
Thank you.
I did just want to remind everyone, the presentation will be provided after the webinar. Give me a little bit of time and I'll have a recording available to everyone. And I will also send out the slides and we'll have those links for you, and we can follow up with all that information. So that will be coming out. We will also provide certificates of completion for those of you who are interested in having that for certification or any other professional development and stuff. So I also just wanted to bring everybody's attention to some of our upcoming events we're really excited about. We've got a few more great webinars on deck. Certification Bootcamp. March 3rd, we've got another webinar, COVID-19 Impact on Transfer DRG Review. March 11th is our Women in Leadership meeting, which is focusing on leaning in versus leaning out. And March 17th, we have a webinar on pricing transparency. What's your strategy for 2021 and beyond? Also not shown here, but save the date. Our spring symposium will be virtual this year, and it is being held April 21st through the 23rd. So definitely keep looking, check out our webinar, our website for that information as it comes. So that concludes our webinar today. Thank you so much, everyone, for spending your lunch with us, and we hope to see you soon.